Hello, my friends. Jacob is here, and it is Tuesday. That is right, the day that follows Monday, the day before Wednesday. I figured I'd just let you all know that. I'm so happy you're with me. Thanks for pressing play and for spending a little time with me. We're going to talk about some fun stuff today. That's right, we're off to the movies. I gotta tell you something. I love movies. I'm a TV guy. I'm a cinephile, as they say. I've always been because I was so sick when I was young. The movies and TV and anything related to acting and storytelling, well, that was my escape because I couldn't play sports and because the big football players and everything else, they had to beat me up, make me feel bad about myself, but that's okay because I got the best of them. Look at me now. I'm 47 and I work out and I box and I do all sorts of cool stuff and no one's gonna mess with me. I'm just kidding. I'm still loving how to fight it. But anyway, the cinema, right? The movies, movie theaters, they're dying. That's what's happening. Netflix is taking over. Is that the case? Is that the future? Is the big screen coming to its end? Well, today's going to be about that as well as some other really cool things. Some things that I wanted to talk about, having to do with space. Super excited to talk about Asteroid Bennu and their plan because in 2035, they think that there's a 1 in a 27,000 chance that the thing is going to crash into us. I did a show on Asteroid Bennu. If you want, I'll put the link in the description or something for you so you can check it out later. I wanted to talk about that on how we were going to send up these super-powered spaceships that have nuclear weapons that we can shoot it down and knock it off course. But, Rex from Leak Project, he got me because he's awesome. And come on, be honest, Rex is awesome. Anybody who knows Leak Project, go over there. And if you don't know Leak Project, go subscribe to his channel. He's just really a great guy. And he also had me on, which was awesome because it was kind of like a dream of mine to be on his show because I'm a fan. But Rex, that guy, he beat me to it. He scooped me, as they say. But I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit more to the story having to do with space. Really, today's show is about the Oscars. And yes, Jimmy Kimmel and how he just ruined it yet again. Oh my God, is he awful. I gotta tell you, even if you like Jimmy Kimmel, I'm sorry. But I even sent out a tweet that day. I sent out a tweet saying, when the Oscars was coming, I was like, can we keep it about entertainment? Can everybody keep their big mouth shut? I don't want to watch the Oscars. It used to be like the Super Bowl for me. It was like that was the thing. We used to place bets on who was going to win and all that jazz, and we'd have little theater parties and Oscar parties, and that's a day of the past. The Oscars are now an afterthought, and they are tanking in the ratings. So today, we're going to be talking about all of that and a bag of chips. So I hope you are buckled up, people, because cinema and entertainment and more, it's just not the same. All right, before I start talking about Kimmel and the Oscars, I want to talk about Asteroid Bennu. Okay, so if you know anything about this thing, it's a huge asteroid, much bigger than the Empire State Building.
And not only is Bennu huge, it's an Egyptian god associated with being reborn, rebirth, and connected to Osiris. That's right, comes before Osiris. That's why we sent the OSIRIS-REx mission out there to discover data, to collect samples, which they said was about finding the origins of mankind, which I said was baloney, because they were trying to figure out whether or not they could blow it apart. Check out the date it was discovered, 9/11.
So they got plans for this ship. It's called the Hammer. I'll Yeah, the hammer, right? It's the idea is to knock it off course. Not really destroy it, but bounce it off course so that it doesn't crash into us and cause some kind of cataclysmic harm in a short period of time. Because we're only talking like a couple of decades. This thing is heading at us.
If you want to study a piece of the early solar system in a lab on Earth, what do? To better understand the evolution of our solar system, NASA is sending the Origins Spectral Interpretation Resource Identification Security Regolith Explorer, or OSIRIS-REx, to study a near-Earth asteroid called Bennu.
Now, they're saying that the only reason they're doing this is because it may contain the origins of life, which I think is a bunch of poopy. It's PG-13 show.
Knowing the physical properties of Bennu will help scientists to refine its orbit over time, including deviations caused by heating and cooling from sunlight, and it will allow them to pick a site for OSIRIS-REx's primary mission, retrieving a sample of the asteroid for study on Earth. In 2019, OSIRIS-REx will deploy its touch-and-go sample acquisition mechanism, or TAGSAM, and slowly approach the sample site. When the TAGSAM touches the surface, it will release a burst of nitrogen gas, causing loose rocks and soil to flow into the collector. Since Bennu may be rich in organic material or water left over from the formation of the solar system, sampling it could reveal whether the building blocks of life were present at that time, perhaps providing clues to the origins of life itself. After moving away from the surface, OSIRIS-REx will perform a spin maneuver to measure the mass of the sample. Then it will carefully stow the TAGSAM head inside the sample return capsule and prepare for the journey back to Earth. Upon arriving home in 2023, OSIRIS-REx will release the sample, giving us a piece of the ancient solar system that will be studied for decades to come.
I think that they're sending it up there for another reason. I say that they're collecting this material and sending it back as quick as they can so that they can study it, so they can find out whether or not it's going to be easy for them to smash it to pieces or send it off course. You know, of course, NASA's not telling us that part. So the idea to build this craft, well, unfortunately, they say that it may not be built. If you follow the channel long enough, you've watched stuff that I've done on the OSIRIS-REx mission. Isn't that funny? They use all these super, like, Egyptian, mythical, supernatural, these Egyptian-type god names, and they make it very, very, they're all a bunch of spooky people over at NASA. Never a straight answer. That's right, we don't trust them, do we? No, we don't! The scientists behind this design will present their work in 2018 in May at the Catastrophic Disruption in the Solar System workshop. It's a workshop called Catastrophic Disruption. It's going to happen in Japan, by the way. Even if NASA and its collaborators get the green light to move forward with the Hammer, I think it's a great name, right? They used to call me the Hammer because I used to do a little carpentry and I used to hit my finger a lot. It's important to be prepared. This is a big deal because we are experiencing fireballs at like a record pace. We just had like another huge fireball that like lit up the sky just a couple of days ago. Space, man. It's cool stuff. Hey, on the side note, you know that astronaut, Scott Kelly, the guy who went up there for a year? He was up there like for, 500 days or something. His DNA was changed. Space changed his DNA. Yeah. I think like 7% hasn't changed back because they're doing this study because he has a twin. So they did this study. They wanted to see the effects of space on man. Well, it turns out it messes you up a little bit, changes your genetic makeup. which a lot of people, they thought might happen, but they weren't too sure about it. Scott Kelly and his brother Mark, also an astronaut, were subject of this study to find out exactly what happens to the body after a year in space. Scott was in the International Space Station. Some people say, there's no such thing. I'm not here to debate that. I'm just talking about how they say space changes the DNA. I know that a lot of people don't believe in space. One day I'm going to do a show on this. I'm going to do a show on this because I don't think people, they use the Bible to explain things, and I don't think they really know the Bible because the Bible talks a lot about astronomical signs and it talks about space. But, that being said, Scott was in the space station between March 2015 and 2016, while his brother, Mark, remained on Earth. And this was the final mission for Scott. He spent a total of 520 days in space. And in 2017, researchers discovered that the end caps of Scott Kelly's chromosomes, his telomeres, well, they'd become longer. It's weird, right? In space. Further testing it's gonna go on. But 93% of his genes, they returned to normal, while another 7%, a little different, little doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Space is a weird thing, man. Space! Moving on. So that was I was going to do a show on that. I wanted to talk about all that. I was actually going to touch on it when I did my first live stream. Hey, everybody. Did you like it? I hope you did. It was a little stressful. And I know that the sound was horrible because look, I'm not a wealthy man. I don't have all the bells and the whistles and the gizmos and the gadgets. I just got my first time I got a real light. And guess what I did, right? Because I found out that during live streams that, you can contribute and support the show. Well, I took that money and I bought a microphone. It's a Yeti, which I think is really cool. And I did some tests on it already. You're not going to hear all that in the background anymore. It's not going to happen. You'll be able to hear me clearly because I'm planning on doing more live streams because, my goodness, it was so cool to connect with all of you. And a lot of you who stuck around after the show, I stayed online and I chatted with them. And I'm planning on doing that again because I type very, very fast. And I type with two fingers, just so you know. Because I'm a writer. I'm an author. Yeah, if you don't know anything about me, I've been a writer for many, many years. I was a TV writer for like 20 years. And so I type very, very fast. So I can actually communicate very well when it comes to a chat room. So after the live stream, which I'm going to do on Friday again, I may do on Thursday. Oh my goodness, I'm confusing you. I should probably just keep it. I'm going to keep it to Friday. And I'm shooting for 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I still haven't figured out how to let you all know about that. I'll probably tweet it out or something. So if you're not connected to me on Twitter, find a little link in the description and connect with me on Twitter. I'll also post it on Facebook. So you'll be able to know exactly when and where, because a lot of people said, you just kind of went live. You didn't tell anybody about it, but you all showed up anyway. So thank you. Super big hug for you. And you guys are so cool. I'm so happy. I've like the best friends in the whole wide world, even though I haven't met you. A lot of you, I really do feel like I know you. So let's talk about the Oscars, shall we? Have you noticed I'm talking a little fast today? Yeah, that's right. Hey, do you know that my wife, speaking of space, I got all caught up here. Oh, this is my favorite necklace. My wife got this for me. Dan got me this necklace. And you know what this is? This is an asteroid. Yeah, that's right. It's an asteroid. Space. I'm all about it, even if it doesn't exist. We don't discriminate here on Jacob's Ladder. Okay, moving on. To next, we're talking about Jimmy Kimmel. I gotta tell you, I don't like Jimmy. I'm not a fan of him. I don't think he's very funny. I was a fan of Johnny Carson. I was even a fan of like Joan Rivers. I was a fan of like Bob Hope because I was raised primarily. I lived with my grandparents. I never met my dad. My mom was a teen mom. First 6 to 7 years of my life, I lived with my grandparents. And I was raised on all these shows, and talk shows were like a big deal. Like I watched Johnny Carson all the time. And, they rarely ever delved into political matters. And if they did so, because they were classy and they were good and they didn't want to alienate an audience, which quite obviously Kimmel and Colbert do very, very well. I mean, you would talk about like they just spit in the face of like half of America, half of people who may have different beliefs. Now, you know me, I come on here. I I don't have allegiance to either party or either candidate. I think it's all a big sham. I think for people that say that, the people that are in power are really out for us, I mean, I hope so. I do hope so. But I find it very suspect, especially when I see things like the unions being broken up. Now, I told you a little bit about this tax thing. I know for some people it's going to be wonderful, but not for me. Not for people that are in the middle class. Definitely not people that are in the middle class that are in New York. Definitely not for police officers and for teachers, where all of their write-offs that they could have, they can't write off anymore. Now, another thing too is there's a big protest going on, or there was at least, for teachers. Because you know what they've done? Yeah, they passed something where now you don't have to pay union dues. Well, I've said this before. My wife makes a certain amount of money. She makes a fair wage, and she should be paid more. But my friend, who's been teaching the same amount of time, makes half. And you know why? Because my wife is in a union here. So what they're doing is they're coming after all of the unions. Look at what they've done to us. And we sit back and we let it happen because we don't know what to do, right? What are we going to do? Well, you can't ask me about it. I'm just here to tell you about it, hopefully to inspire people who have the means to do something about it. But even the entertainment industry, it doesn't offer us any solace anymore. We can't just turn on TV anymore and just watch and enjoy, because half of the time they're mocking half of the people. And that's not so cool. And guess what? In your face, Kimmel. I hope they never put this man. I really do. Man, is he boring and bland in his writing. The writers, I don't even want to get into all that. You get tired of hearing all this political drivel and all these people. The Me Too movement, which I think is wonderful, because you know that I've been saying for how long that corruption is going to be exposed. Corruption is going to be revealed. People are going to be called out for what they are. But Jimmy Kimmel, my goodness, take a look at the Man Show. Hypocritical. You have this guy hosting, the same guy who used to ask young girls on the street to put their hands down his pant to see what kind of fruit he has in his pockets. Yeah, he's a man for the people. He's a man who has, morals and class. You just come, besides him crying every time there's something terrible happens, and you don't believe me, I cry too, but I don't make it a point of coming on constantly and doing this. I make it a point of coming on and trying to encourage and inspire people to take control of their life and to live for more and to not listen to the lies and to rise above the nonsense. But he and his peers in television, that's why I think we should stop watching these shows. I hope you do. I did. I used to I liked David Letterman. I liked him. A lot of people don't like him. I liked him. I liked Conan O'Brien. Sometimes I can't even find him anymore. I like Jay Leno. They still were not as classy as Carson. They still weren't as classy as Bob Hope. But man, my goodness. I mean, Kimmel and this other one, Colbert and Jon Stewart, all these guys who they started out with a little bit of talent, but then they decided that they were just going to dictate politics and how policy should be made. Meanwhile, they're living high on the hog, making a ton of money, getting paid by advertisers that are doing horrible things to this country. Horrible things. Corporations that are doing horrible things on networks that are programming our children and our and society as a whole to be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, to follow after nonsense and follow after, sensual this and just feel good and don't think, and you could get your little safe space, and you're not, anybody who disagrees with you is a bad person and you got to knock them in the nose. I mean, they're not doing any good for society. What they're doing is they're little puppets that are having their little strings pulled. They're there to get all of you to believe a certain way and to hate people that believe differently. Just like the other ones are there to do the same. CNN, Fox, and they're both full of nonsense and full of baloney. So anyway, in 2018, And I knew this was going to happen, by the way, because there's been a steady decline. In my opinion, Seth MacFarlane should be hosting the Oscars again. Yes, Seth MacFarlane in 2013, he came on, and man, there was an increase. There was a big surge in popularity in the Oscars again, mainly because people were excited to see what the guy would do. He, at least, you can be political and you can be funny and you can make a statement without spitting in the face of people that may support a certain candidate or support a certain policy. You can do it in a way, but you got to be creative and funny, right, Jimmy? You know anything about that? I don't like him. No, I'm not a big fan. I got to tell you, and I like a lot of people. I don't like the fact that he's ruined the Oscars for me now, because I couldn't even watch it. That's how terrible it was. And I'm glad that the ratings tanked. And that's what happened. Let me read a little bit of this to you. Okay, 2018 Academy Awards logged its lowest TV ratings ever last Sunday, capping off a particularly brutal run for the marquee live events that were supposed to be immune from such. All mainly because of, they're saying, because of the streaming video and Netflixes of the world. And that's what's killing the box office. Netflix, right? I don't really go to the movies anymore. I don't. I mean, I did just recently for the first time because I wanted to see that movie Annihilation with Natalie Portman, which I thought was really kind of cool. It was kind of a cool movie. It wasn't a great movie. I'm not recommending to go see it, but it was kind of a cool movie. And I went to go see it because I liked the premise. But I don't go to the movies anymore because it's really nothing but drivel. The only movies that people go see today are these big blockbuster movies. Like, you have to have these epic things. And they're so ridiculous, some of them. The Rock, Dwayne, who I used to write for, I was one of the writers back in the day when it was WWF and when the ratings were through the roof, and they're not anymore. But I wrote for him, and he's awesome. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I just saw Jumanji with my little man, and where we watched it online. We didn't go to the movie theater to watch it, but everything has to be epic. He has a movie coming out soon, another big blockbuster movie that's all about effects. Very, very heavy on the wow moments, but very, very, light on the sincere, heart-wrenching, touching moments and meaningful moments. Like, when you leave a film, you should leave thinking about it. You should leave a film talking about it. And you should leave a film feeling better, I believe. And that's what I used to feel like when I watched the Oscars. But you can't do that now because everybody wants to give their little 2 cents about what they think. Yeah? And they want to put down everybody else and make everybody else feel like they're, ridiculous. And the same horrible people are, they're applauded on a regular basis, like Meryl Streep. There's something wrong with Hollywood today, and I think that the reason why the entertainment industry is seeing this shift is because it's that bad. The Oscars on ABC was like their flagship show, right? It was like their Super Bowl, right? So the big advertising dollars. Well, let me tell you something. This is a great little article that I read in the Washington Times. Not that I'm saying that the Times is a great paper either, but it's just something I read. And they say many conservative, like columnists, chose not to watch the Oscars as a statement rejecting the increasingly politicized nature of the Film Academy's award show. Life is hard enough, right? It's hard for me. I know, and I'm a happy guy, and life is good for me. But it's still difficult. And it always gets more difficult right before that breakthrough. So if you're going through a hard time, hang on and remember, it's going to get better because all this stuff is happening to get us to where we need to go. We need to open our eyes and we need to see what's happening around us. Yet the ratings disaster this year is so significant, it was down a whopping 20% from last year. And it suggests a significant cultural shift that has occurred that pretends to a great loss, not just for the entertainment industry, but for the nation as a whole. Now, ironically, the film industry itself has become one of the problems because we can't go there to escape. That's the main thing. Consider in 2014, 43 million people watched the Oscars. Just how many years later? 4 years later, right? 26 million. That's a big drop. Now, what has changed? I wonder. People want to be entertained. We're paying, we're buying those products. The advertisers are paying you to make us, give us a little bit of an escape now and then. But I think that this is a good thing. I think that there's another side to this that I'm going to get into in closing. I want to know where the Hollywood stars of yesteryear were, like Clark Gable, and like where are those? Where are those stars? Like today, the Jimmy Stewarts of the world, the people that were like represented morality and you wanted to be a role model for you. We've seen the general decline in morals all over television. I mean, it's so rare to find anything that's worthwhile, anything that really your family can watch. What it is it's kind of a bummer. I like this little thing that the author of this article said. He said, instead of being transported away from your day's tribulations, we become Dustin Hoffman in Laurence Olivier's dentist chair. If you ever saw Marathon Man, he was being tortured, And that's what it is. It's like watching torture. It's like watching torture. It's like that's why probably a lot of you have turned to YouTube and you've turned to people like me, because you don't want to be made fun of. You don't want to be mocked. It's hard enough when you're working 2 jobs like myself and others to just support your family, because the corporations that take over where you work are paying you less and everything becomes more expensive. And like I said before, now they're coming after the teachers' unions too, because how many people, the union dues are about $1,000 a year. How many people are going to, if you don't have to pay that anymore, which you don't have to, what's going to happen to the unions? They're going to fall apart. And then what's going to happen to the teachers? They're going to make a lot less money. And that's just not the way things should be. Every year we should see an increase in the fruit of our labor. And sadly, what we're seeing every year is someone taking and taking and taking. And there's going to come a time when people aren't going to want to be taken from anymore. Luckily, I believe something's coming before all of that, before everybody gets all hot and heavy, because I've been talking a lot about how they're trying to get everyone to fight each other. And I say no, because that's not the answer. As long as we don't fall for the little games, we can overcome and we can walk into that next day. And that day is coming for all of us. So the Oscars may be, boring and horrible because of Jimmy Kimmel. I'm sorry, if you're a Jimmy Kimmel fan, forgive me, but he ruined the Oscars for me. And that's kind of a bummer. And I've wanted to talk about it a lot, but it is what it is. It's just, it's sad that it seems like almost every area of our life seems to be under attack. And who wants to get mocked on a regular basis, right? When you turn on TV, you just want to eat your waffles with peanut butter and jelly, gluten-free, of course, and your almond milk like me. You want to watch your show, 45 minutes to an hour, and then fall asleep and wake up and then do it all over again. The good news is I live for a little bit more than just my job. I am living for what is to come. That's where my eye is. And that's where my focus is. And that's why when I sent that tweet out, I just knew they were going to be I knew the Oscars were going to be a disaster, because people are tired and they're fed up and we're just not going to take it anymore. So what do you think? In any event, I love each and every one of you. I want to thank you. Please do subscribe. Maybe I forget to say this in the beginning, because, those of you that stick to the end, you probably already are subscribed. So share it around, tell your friends, and don't forget, the life that you're living, you are co-creating. So think good thoughts. Don't listen to the lies in your head. Anything that brings fear into your life, cast it away. And if you're watching something and it starts to make you feel bad about yourself because of the terrible host, just change the channel. Show them when they get the little Nielsen ratings And guess what's going to happen? Probably be the last year that Kimmel hosts the Oscars. I love each and every one of you. I want to thank you all, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.